What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Monday evening. Dr. Ray here. Welcome to another episode of the Deets with Dr. A. So I'm having an amazing Monday. Hope you guys had a great Monday. How was your Monday so far? If you're watching us live or even watching the recording on our YouTube channel, go ahead and throw in that comment box. How was your Monday? So hope you started off great. We got a lot of days to go to the end of the weekend, but before you know it, it's going to be Friday again and the weekend's off if you get those. So give me a big shout out in the comment box if you're like, I don't get weekends off. I don't know what you're talking about. So we got another great episode here. But before we roll into today's special guest, let's bring our main man behind the scenes. Matt, you with us, Matt?
I am. What's going on, guys? Welcome. Happy Monday.
What's the good word, Matt? What is our special day today?
I know you look forward to this every week. This is the highlight of your week. So today is National Trail Mix Day. So
nice. You know, I love me some trail mix. I got it right here. Look at that.
Look at that. All right, you're ready.
Big salty. I always pick out the M&Ms though. I don't know about you, but I pick out the M&Ms first.
Well, someone will enjoy them. So.
While I got you on here, who we got next week coming up?
Yeah. I'll throw that up in 1 second.
All right. So next week, actually, I should say next week. Let me correct that because next week is a holiday. 2 weeks from now, we have got another great episode for you. We have got three individuals, our HR director from one of our partner schools, Collier County Public Schools. They're going to be on here discussing about how to support new teachers. So if you're a new teacher in a school, first year, second year, third year, you definitely want to join into this session. This is the HR director, several of the support staff in there are going to be joining us talking about how to support new teachers. And definitely you as a new teacher in the classroom, what kind of support should you get? And if not, where should you go to get it? So you definitely want to join us next 2 weeks from now. I keep saying next week. 2 weeks from now, Monday night. I believe that's a September 14th, if I'm correct. If I'm wrong on the day, don't shoot me. But I believe it's September 14th or September 15th. Cool. So you can take that one down, Matt. I appreciate that. So here at the Learning Liaisons, we are a leader in test preparation for teachers and aspiring school leaders for their preparation for their state certification exams nationwide. So back in June, we started rolling out this show, Deets with Dr. A, where we want to start providing what teachers and leaders need, which is valuable, meaningful, relevant professional development training. So enter the Deets with Dr. A show. So this is free. This is for you. We're doing topics that run the gamut from bullying to ed tech tools to social emotional learning, groups, projects. Today, we got a very special guest we're going to bring on here in a second, Miss Christie Ray, who is just recently appointed the Principal of the Year for Osceola County Public Schools here in Central Florida. So those of you guys who might be watching this recording or live not from the state of Florida, that's in the central parts of Orange, Seminole, Osceola, right around there on the map. So with that being said, I want to bring on our special guest this week, Ms. Christie Ray. Are you with us, Christie?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I want you to just, first off, just how we do every week, I've got some real general discussion questions to talk about resumes, and you got special surprise for these guys. You're going to be rolling through and going through a brief presentation on all the aspects of the resume and show you some do's and don'ts. So whether they're watching live or the recording, they're going to get some amazing value from you today. So before we roll into our first question, I want you to introduce yourself, tell us your journey in education, and let us know what you're doing right now to make such a big impact.
Fantastic. Thanks. So I started actually in Hillsborough County. So any Hillsborough County folks out there, I became a baby teacher at a school called Piso Elementary. That was my very first school. I stayed in Hillsborough County until my husband moved to Orange County, and I actually worked in Orange County as working on the pipeline, the principal pipeline and AP pipeline. And then I decided I needed to be a principal. So I was a principal in Orange County for about 2 years, and I have been here. This is my third year. So I've worked on the Gates grants. I have done all sorts of really cool stuff. Westside K-8 is unique because it has about 1,800 students, pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. So it's kind of like running 2 schools. And now with the digital, it's like running 4 schools. And it's nestled in the 4 corners of Osceola, Orange, Lake, and Seminole County. So we have a really unique group of students, and it's definitely been a fun challenge to work here. And I've looked at a lot of resumes. So I kind of feel like that if I have an area of expertise, it's hiring and looking at a lot of resumes. My first year as a principal, I hired 68 teachers. And by the end of the year, I'd hired 138 teachers. So I have a giant staff. I needed to hire a lot of people. So.
Wow. So before we roll into it, I got one question for you. Why did you get in the field of education?
Oh, that's a good question. I have just always been a teacher at heart. I taught swim lessons. My parents said I should be a doctor, and I said, okay. So I went to be a doctor, and that wasn't for me. And then I thought, I'll be a nurse. That's helping people, and okay. And finally, I sat down and wrote down all the things that I love to do, and it always went back to kids. So I became a teacher, and I've been one ever since. Sure. So when I'm looking at a resume, I know the first thing I'm not looking for is what school you went to or what your GPA was. Although that is great information, I am looking for what do you bring to the table and what unique experiences do you have. So we know if you're a teacher or if you're an administrator, we know the basics of your role. A resume is to show what do you do above and beyond that and show the results of what you did above and beyond. So yes, you taught math, but what specifically did you do to make that math instruction pop or special? And what were the results of it? A resume is sort of like when you go out for dinner and you put on a fancy outfit, the resume is your fancy outfit. It kind of tells people who you are and a little bit about you when you can't be there. So it is the first thing that a person sees about you, and right or wrong, they can form some judgments based on your resume. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and some things to avoid that I've seen on resumes.
Awesome. Yeah, I know a lot of people struggle with, what to put on there, what not to put on there. It's kind of like the next question I have for you is it better for you to position yourself general speaking? Because that's the mistake I made when I first started back in the day, my resume, or specialize in something. What do you have to say about that?
That's a really good point. Every position that I apply for, I change my resume based on the needs of the resume. And so if you're looking to, let's say, get into a school as a new teacher and you're not really going to be picky, you're going to take what you can get. You want to put yourself as a generalist. You want to put yourself with as much variety and openness so that a principal can start to see where you might fit in. Now, once you reach the point where you're thinking, I want to be a reading coach or a math coach, you might start to specialize and show those areas that relate to that job. And then, of course, in the principal role, if I were to go out and try to get a principalship as an assistant principal, I'm going to become a pretty strict specialist. And I might look at the school I'm applying for. For this school, I put my Title I experience. I put, different things that I would put applying for another school. I put, where I had worked in big places and run big organizations because this is a big school. Whereas if I was applying for a little elementary school, I might lean more towards my elementary side and how I built relationships and dealt with little ones. So it really depends on the job.
So you're telling me that a teacher or aspiring school leader should actually research the school they're applying to and really tailor it to the needs of that school?
Absolutely. Nothing, I know what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for certain things on a resume. And if I get 10 resumes for a position, the more your resume stands out visually, which we'll talk about. And then once I start reading, the more it tailors that you've had some experience. When you work at Title I, you have a different skill set than when you work at, let's say, a private school, whereas a private school might not need the experiences someone had in Title I. There's certain things that both of us would be looking for that are very different.
A point on that, because I know even from experience and also teaching over UCF and hearing with the aspiring teachers coming out 22 years old, putting together their first resumes, they don't really know that. They don't know that step to kind of research the school necessarily and try to tailor their resume. So it's great that you point that out, definitely as someone who has a lot of experience in the field. So my next question to you is, what exactly should you put on it? And I know you're going to go through some examples, but I just want to kind of get the ball rolling. Can you give some insight on that?
Yeah. So a couple of things that you want to be super, super careful of. Nobody should know what you look like. what your beliefs are, and what your family life is like from a resume. And, you know, that's right or wrong. People make snap judgments. And while I am a USF Bull, you know, somebody who puts a big UCF logo on their resume, I love UCF. And so I would never say anything. But let's say if I'm an Auburn principal and somebody puts that they are huge. I got one resume that had a huge Alabama A on it. And I thought, wow, if I was a principal from Auburn, I might not talk to that person. Pictures, don't put your pictures. I know some of you are beautiful, but people make snap judgments about you. You want to walk in there with a little preconception of who you are as a person, that you want them to see you as a professional and as someone who is going to service their school regardless. So I always say, you know, sometimes when we talk about affiliations and you have maybe church affiliations, if you feel strongly, absolutely put it on, but you never know who your principal is and what preconceived notions they have about those sorts of things. For example, I had an assistant principal that tried for a long time to get an interview. And when I looked at her resume, she had that she worked at the Gaming Institute, she was doing like card dealing. And I said, you know what, try leaving that out and see what happens. She got an interview right away. So people were making judgments of the type, and she was lovely and great. And she is now on her way to being a principal. Somebody was making judgments based on what she put on her resume. You know, I got one that had the person's picture and it said that she was divorced and had 3 kids. You know, if I were a judgmental person, I might think, wow, if she's got 3 kids and she's by herself. Sorry, can you not hear me?
No, we hear you. We hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. It said I can't unmute if you muted yourself. My bad. Okay. So you want to take that judgment out. Your email address. If your email address is Spring Break Chick 52, you might want to change your email address to be something very specific. That's like your first name, your last name. Gmail's free. Set up a free Gmail that's very professional, very easy to remember, and it doesn't have any kind of personal connection. I can't tell you the number of really inappropriate resumes. And just a little quick shout out. Well, I know we're not talking about resumes, but your social media, I Google and I Facebook stalk every one of my candidates. So be sure that your first picture that is something appropriate, because I really, you know, if I see a teacher and their first picture, maybe their spring break alcohol, that's great. You're entitled to have your life. But I'm looking for, you know, parents are going to Google that and they're going to think, wow, this teacher might, you know, this is all they think about. So really think about what you have on your social media. And if you have personal blogs and websites that you want to put on your resume, that's awesome. Just make sure that you're not putting schools in a bad light or really opinionated one way or another on those blogs. And if you are, then just leave them off your resume.
Yeah. Items that I try to stress to aspiring teachers and current teachers, you know, with the resume and putting personal beliefs and pictures on there. Hey, you know, especially with social media, especially nowadays even with the election coming up, but regardless of that, anything like that, a lot of people, I've done trainings for 50 to 100 college students as interns through my county when I was still teaching. And I can't tell you how many pushback. Well, it's my social media. I can do what I want, but a lot of principals like yourself are Googling and looking up your social media. It's not like they're stalking you. They just want to see your pictures and just take a quick look. But a lot of people, even what they battle with that concept and they're like, well, that's not fair. Well, it's the reality. It's like you go to my Facebook page, there's nothing about politics, religion, nothing, because it's perception and how people perceive you, even especially when you're in the classroom too. You know, that's a whole nother topic by itself. But one thing I did want to ask you, when you talked about personalizing your resume, what do you say to people that are a little artistic, like they want to use colors or anything like that? Is that okay?
Yeah, I actually, you know, if the resumes that are very crisp and clean and maybe have some artistic flair, as long as it's not, you know, if it's overly cutesy and overly visually kind of stimulating, but that stands out. You know, when I'm flipping through resumes, it tells me that you have some creativity. It tells me you have some abilities, and don't panic if you're not artsy, because let me tell you, my resume is it's just basic. It doesn't have anything cutesy. So don't feel like it has to be cutesy, but definitely if you've got some artistic ability and you've got some visual ability, do it. It makes it stand out, because ultimately your first thing in that pile is you want to be the one that the principal pulls out of the pile, or your future employer pulls out of the pile and takes a second look. So your first battle is just getting looked at. And then from there, it's what do you put on your resume?
Awesome. All right. So next question is, why do I need to list my work achievements, not just my duties and responsibilities? What do you think about that?
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't put your duties and responsibilities unless they're above and beyond what a typical person in your current state is. So, if I were doing my resume right now as a principal, I would not put evaluates teachers, because that's just part of what I know I do. So I always assume as a principal, you're doing your job. I want to know what else you're doing with your job. So your work achievements tell me what you did above and beyond your roles and responsibilities, because that's what I'm looking for. Someone who and it doesn't mean you have to work, 5 hours extra after school, but even what you do within the realm of your classroom, if you made sure that all your students did student-led conferencing, let's say, that personally is something that I think is pretty cool. And so somebody who took a risk to have all their students do student-led conferencing is someone that I would really be interested in. If you've done Kagan trainings, if you've maybe been trained in a certain curriculum, or just something you're super passionate about in education, then that would be something you'd want to list.
Awesome. And I literally had this conversation a couple times in the last month. I'm in a lot of teacher groups and even our Facebook groups for our teachers. I had a lot of people asking, well, what about honor societies? Some people like, oh, don't put it on there. They don't care about that. I'm like, no, they do care, because, I used it when I was in there. But, what do you think about teachers, and especially obviously college students is more applicable to, about putting those education honor societies on there?
I would definitely think when you're starting, and I kind of, when I share my screen, we talk about how many pages, right? So I get resumes that are 6 pages long. I'm not going to read them. And I get a resume that's half a page long. That doesn't say enough for me. So if you're looking to fill a page and you're a new teacher, absolutely put those honor societies, put those extra achievements. It shows that you're interested in being your best and going above. As you get more seasoned in your schooling and your career, then you probably can start to decide, what do I need to drop off? Because I'm kind of to the point where, you're not supposed to have a resume more than 2 pages long, just FYI. 2 pages is more than enough, especially because you can print it front and back and it's great, saves paper. So I have to look and say, gosh, what am I going to remove from my resume? Don't put your high school. I always put the most relevant degree, my last degree. So for example, when I was, just graduating from college, I had my my bachelor's degree on there. Now that I have a master's degree, I just put the master's degree. Unless there's something specific, maybe you went to an international school and studied ELL students, then that might be something relevant if you're applying to a school with a high ELL population. But otherwise, I'm going to assume that if you've applied for this position, you have the degree that you need, and you can put that at the end.
As a principal, Christie, do you really care what a teacher's GPA was in college?
No, honestly.
That's what I tell people. They always, I get it. If you got a 4.0, you're proud of it. I understand that, but that is good that you confirm that for me, because that's what I keep telling people. It's
Absolutely.
Not really that relevant. All right, so I got one more question. Then we're going to roll into your examples, and then we'll come back for a couple of closing questions. So, what's the worst resume mistake that you've ever seen or done yourself?
I think you asked me what the worst resume was I ever got. I actually got a brochure, and which was actually a cool idea. Doing a brochure was not the bad idea. But she put this kind of terrible glamour shot on the front, and it was, like the feather boa kind of glamour shot. And it was all about her personally. And it was just very strange. And so that was really uncomfortable. And then, gosh, if you have spelling errors and you don't capitalize, that drives me crazy. You're going to be in education, have somebody read your resume. I had a boss actually that would hold the resume up to the light and would look for alignment to make sure that you aligned everything correctly. I'm not that way, but if you can't capitalize and spell correctly, that's really an immediate out. Some of our teachers are translating from Spanish. Have a person help you that can look at the syntax, because sometimes syntax is off and it doesn't make sense. But definitely spelling errors, grammatical errors, and a horrible glamour shot.
Wow, that's crazy. Literally holds it up to the light to see if it's aligned. So just toss it away if it's not aligned.
Yeah, I don't work for her anymore.
You're gonna scare people with that one. I'll be freaking out like, oh my God, oh
No.
my God. All right, so let's do this. So at the end, I got a couple of final questions, but let's switch this now. So you got some stuff, cool stuff you want to share. So while she's doing that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some people watching live. Obviously, the recording this isn't going to apply to, but as we're doing this, if you could think of any questions that you have for Christie, you could put them in the comment box. But Matt, go ahead and throw the stream link in the comments for me if you don't mind. If you want to jump on the video too and be a part of the conversation, if you have a question, something you want to ask Christie, we're going to throw in a link in the comment box. So obviously during the live session, you can do this. You want to click on it, you'll come in the classroom. You could ask Christie a question too, if that's something you want. So I know a lot of people are shy when it comes to that, but we'll throw that in the comment box for you. So, all right, Christie, you want to switch it over?
Yep, I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
No, not. Oh, there we go.
There it is. Awesome. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is your visual center. So you'll see these blue lines. If you take your resume and you fold it like you're going to put it in an envelope, you fold it in thirds, and it'll give you a line. If you go an inch above the line and an inch below the line, that is the blue lines that I've drawn. This is where the eye naturally goes. So if you're sticking an objective in there or you're sticking what school you went to, it's not going to catch somebody's eye. It's not going to be important. And so one of the things that I've uploaded, and I don't know, Dr. Ample, if you could share it with them afterwards, but I've given some befores and afters. So this is this guy's resumes before, and he kind of had some bullet lists of things that he did and some career development. But I want to scroll up and show you after he put some key accomplishments. You can't really see it. Let me zoom in. In his visual center, he has now put some key accomplishments on his startup operations, new market. So once I saw this, I actually switched how I did my resume, and I put 5 really important bullet marks of things that I'm super proud of. So visual center is huge. If you have your most important thing in that visual center. And then I'm just going to talk about some, did you have a question?
No, I was going to say you back up for a second. I never even thought about that. That's like an eye-popping thing someone just go right to and look at. That's great. That's great right there.
He uses a lot of upper space for his information. I personally don't take as much space for my personal information. If you're applying for a job, this brings me back to the email. If you're applying for a job at another school or out of another district, do not use your district email. That's just not appropriate. That's why I suggest just create your own email address on Gmail. That way you can always use that one, and you know that that's for business.
We had a question on the screen, Christie.
Oh, sure.
If you could tackle that. Is a master's degree in educator worthwhile to an MBA?
So if you're going to stay in education, absolutely, but just get it in educational leadership. I'm sure that the colleges would not be happy for me saying this, but there's very little that you're going to get your money back on other than educational leadership. So if you're thinking about, maybe unless you want to do maybe ESE or something like that, but for the most part, definitely I have more than used my degree in educational leadership. And if you decide that you want to get outside of the education realm, having that ed leadership is super helpful. Okay, so things that you can put on a resume. These are just kind of some bullet list things that you can put on a resume. You don't have to have all of them. You don't have to have even one of them, but I'm just going to run through a couple of do's and don'ts with them. And I keep clicking on the wrong screen. So in your bio bites, this is just where you can put your information. Now, if you put your street address, this is something that really became applicable here. We're on the way corner of the county. So I actually look at people's addresses and see if it's over a 45-minute drive, I don't call them, which maybe you're willing to make a 45-minute drive. Maybe you live in Florida and you're thinking of relocating to Georgia. I might look at a Florida address and say, gosh, they're not even here yet. I'm not going to bother. But you could be the greatest candidate ever. So you may want to, depending upon the place you're applying for, you may want to leave off your street address and city and state. I just put my email address and my phone number. I put my cell phone number and I put my name. If you have a great website, maybe you have a teaching blog, you can certainly put those things on there as well. Okay, so a lot of... I
want to reiterate the point you said before, because there are a lot of people popping in and out about blogs and websites. Just you might be proud of one, but make sure it's appropriate what content's on there, any perspectives too. So just want to throw that out. You said that before, so.
Absolutely. Objectives or focus statements used to be a thing. Honestly, I would just leave off an objective. I mean, I read objectives and it's like, great, I want to be a great caring teacher. For objectives really mean nothing. They're just a personal goal. And I'd rather know what you've done. So I would leave off an objective or a focus statement personally, but you could talk about your goals or your strengths, your qualifications. But for me, I just ignore an objective, quite honestly.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Quick question for you. So back on the objectives, what if someone put on their, let's say they're applying at your school and they want to be, whatever grade level teacher, and they put in their objective to eventually become a principal or be a college professor or something. Is that something like yourself or any leader might look at and go, well, I'm looking for someone long-term and you say you want to be a principal, that's great. Is that something that might deter people from interviews?
It could. I guess it kind of depends. I would think, though, if I were a new teacher and I put that I want to be a principal, I might think you need to walk before you run. So certainly, and if I know your goal is to be a college professor, I may not invest as much time as, I may not, because I know you're just looking to get in and then get out. However, I do have a couple of people that I know that's their eventual goal. And my job as a leader is to create other leaders. So I might, in an interview, if you were to say that, and once I have you in the door and I see how awesome you are, if you want to say, I always say, what do you want to be when you grow up, to my staff every year? And they kind of tell me their goals and I help them work towards their goals. But straight out of the gate, you want to put just enough on your resume to get you in the door. And really, it's that interview. Maybe a teaser, I can do a future one on interviewing techniques because I do have some stuff on that. But the resume gets you in the door. The interview is where you really sell yourself. So to answer your question, I would not put that you want to be a principal.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm talking like eventually, like my ultimate goal is to become a principal. Probably maybe leave that out. I don't know.
Yeah. So just if you're talking about your qualifications, any of your strengths, your accomplishments, some people do, there's a couple of kind of resumes. You can do a timeline one that kind of goes through your timeline of your jobs. Now, there's a couple of things that are red flags. Some people like to change jobs every 2 years. And actually, I was one for a while because I was moving up. I changed positions every 2 years for good reason. But when you're looking at my resume and you see I change jobs every 2 years, it might throw up a flag. Maybe you're married to somebody who moves around a lot, and so you change jobs a lot. To get you in the door, you may change to be more of a career summary. So I switched to where I said I worked in Hillsborough County, and I listed my positions under that so they could see, well, she stayed with the same county for a long time. She just changed positions within the county. That almost cost me a position because I had changed every 2 years. So if you're one that just likes to change and you like change, that starts to look bad after a while. So you want to kind of, to be able to explain that, of course, and you might explain it in your cover letter, but you want to mask that a little bit in your resume so that it doesn't jump out immediately. I can tell you there's people that I have not hired or called in because of that.
Awesome point. We got Allison wants to join the room. Allison, she got a question for you. Hey, Allison, how are you?
Hello.
Awesome. Where are you joining us from?
From Broward County.
Awesome.
College student.
Oh, I'm always down there, Broward College, doing presentations for their teachers. Awesome. So you got a question for Christie?
I guess, yeah, I do. I went to my local college career center, so to speak, to kind of like spice up my resume. But I was very specific. I was working as a music teacher. Just not. Oh, can you hear me now?
I can't hear her question.
Okay, let me type it then. You can hear me? Should I just type it?
I can now. Sorry, cut out for a minute.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. My internet might go bad, so I'll do both, I guess. I was just saying, so my career center at my college, it didn't really do a good job in doing it. So should I just continue to use the internet as resources on how to curate, whether it's a resume or whether it's a curriculum, a CV, curriculum vitae?
Yeah, you don't necessarily need a fancy resume writer.
Mhm.
So the ones that I'm going to have Dr. Ample share shows some before and afters. And actually, I'm going to switch. Can you share my screen again, Dr. Ample, real quick? Okay. So the visual center, but it just has a couple of like befores and afters. So this was this person's before, and you can see it's just a traditional resume. But then when he goes after, do you see how eye-catching? And you can find 100 resume templates out there. I would just honestly search free resume templates and find one that stands out to you and put your information in it. It doesn't have to be, you don't need somebody's help to do it. You can totally do it yourself. And at the end of this, I'm happy to look at, I always look at resumes. I'm happy to look at resumes. Just be forewarned that I print them and I write all over them. So if you're a sensitive soul, I write all over them.
Got it.
And then there's another one. This guy, he had his general, and look how much kind of wasted white space on the left. And he had that he was a first grade teacher. So this paragraph format, the second time he switched it into bullets. So switching things into bullets makes it much more eye-catching. You tend to be a little ADHD as a principal, and you don't have a lot of time. So I don't have time to read paragraphs. I read bullets. If you send me an email that doesn't have bullets, it's going to be a while before I read it. So honestly, I wouldn't waste your money any further. I would Google what looks good to you and fill in your information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you,
Allison. I lost Allison. I hope I didn't scare her off.
There
There
you
she
are.
is.
Yeah.
Hi,
I can't
thank
hear
you.
anybody.
I was saying thank you.
We thank you.
Dr. A, are you still there?
Yeah. If you have any other questions, just let us know. And I'm sure, Christy, at the end we can share your. I don't know if it might be dangerous to share your email in the comment box.
I don't mind.
But if Allison, if you have a question, you could go to our website and send me an email on the contact button, and then I'll make sure I could send that to Christy too.
I hope I answered it for her.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. It's all about the example. So awesome.
Okay, so I do this. It's sort of self-serving because the more I get out there, as Victoria Cooley said earlier, we are always hiring. So I'm always looking for great people. So by helping people with their resumes, it always gives me a look at your resume, and I might just say, hey, so what you up to? Want to come here? So I'm always looking for great people. So as far as your professional experience, there's just some things that you might put your professional record. It's great if you can put data for a principal, and it doesn't have to be fancy data, but if you can put, I raised my FSA scores by 3%, or I got, 90% of my first graders to read on a first grade level. Anytime you can put results, it tells me as a teacher that you know how to look at data and that you're very focused on results. So I always say, so what? So I was team leader. So what? What did that do for your team? How did you help your team? Accomplishments. So what I would suggest is, you can put 100 things you did at a school. I would pick your 5 most important. And then the most impressive is number 1. It doesn't have to be chronological. And then I sort of go, I say CAR because those are actually my initials, but what was your challenge? What action did you take and what result? And again, be specific with the data and start with those results, because when I'm reading and I see, 52%, it catches my eye. You always want it to be eye-catching as much as possible. And then, of course, your skills. You can put your skills. Probably would not put if you do have nunchuck skills, but any abilities, talents, strengths. This, though, keep professional. If you're a mountain biker, I love mountain biking, but I really don't care if a teacher mountain bikes, other than I know it'll be a stress relief for you. But relating to the professional job, what strengths and abilities do you have? And then your education credentials, if you're ESOL endorsed, that's great, but most of you are coming out with ESOL endorsement. Reading endorsement's probably a good one to put on there right now because teachers must be reading endorsed. But again, just put your most recent one unless there's an important reason to you. If you've written articles and books, and that's all great to share, but only if you're applying for a job in which that's important. As a teacher, it's not necessarily as important, and it gets kind of lengthy. And affiliations, I'm going to mention again, because I know some of you, as Dr. A said, have jumped on late. Any affiliations, just be careful with your affiliations. There are very terrible, judgy people out there. and some principals have had negative experiences with certain industries. And so you just want to get your foot in the door and for them to see how awesome you are. And then it doesn't matter because they know you're a good person. But any mentorships that you've done, any organizations you've worked for, any associations, you can certainly put that on. And then, of course, go ahead.
Just to add to that too, we kind of touched on it earlier towards the beginning, is when we talk about affiliations and what to put on there and what to not, don't get in the game of complaining, like saying, I don't understand why that's wrong. I'm proud to be on X, Y, and Z committee or do this. That's great. We're not saying it's bad. Just be very cognizant of what you're putting on there because you're trying to get a job.
Yep.
So that, that's just something some people, it rubs the wrong way when I talk about that with them. It's like, well, I don't understand. This is what I do. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but we're trying to get a job. So
correct.
It's good that you mentioned this stuff.
And some of my favorite teachers on my staff are huge, huge members of the union, and they are amazing and they work really hard. But if, that can be a deterrent for a principal too, right or wrong. Again, all of these, as Dr. A said, it's right or wrong. It should not be that way. It shouldn't matter what you look like. It shouldn't matter who you're affiliated with. But we all have background knowledge and background things, and you just want to get your foot in the door. And then once they see you and once you can sell yourself, and if you're not the right fit, you're interviewing them as well. Getting a job's important, but your first job, your first school is so critical. And I'm glad he's doing that session on how to support a new teacher, because your first school has got to be supportive of you. And you need to make sure that principal and that school is going to help you be the best that you're going to be and not leave you out to dry. So getting your foot in the door and you're feeling them out, they're filling you out as well.
What do you say? What do you say to people? And this is something that I experienced back in the day when I was starting to get my first teaching job. What do you say to people that have, for example, like a master's degree before they even started teaching or trying to get a job with advanced degrees? Do you think that, I'm not necessarily speaking towards you personally, but in general, from your temperature of all the administrators out there, do you feel like some administrators might look down on someone with advanced degrees versus someone who's fresh out of college that they could mold?
No, see, I see people with another background. I see it a couple of ways. I actually think it's pretty cool because you've had an experience somewhere else, and that means you chose education, hopefully for the right reason, because you had a calling and you tried other stuff and there was just this call that kept bringing you back. It can be helpful depending upon what the degree is in. So I don't see a problem with it at all. There is a thing about being overqualified, especially if I were a principal myself and I went to go apply at a school in another state as a teacher, they might look at me and say, I don't want her in the building. She's going to be bossy because she was a principal. They might make that judgment, but I actually like when people come to me from other careers because I feel like they're more sometimes moldable because they've already been through something else first and realized what the real world is like. Versus a new college student, you come in starry-eyed and kind of bewildered. They kind of know what they're doing. So I wouldn't say that would be a bad thing at all.
That's good you point out. And what about, like, for me, for my example, for instance, what about those who get their degree in education, then keep going to get their master's before they get their first job? That's what I did. So, that's I like your response to the other one. What about those people who are thinking, should I just keep going and get my graduate degree, then start teaching? Is that something that principals might look upon differently if they see that track before even teaching?
I don't know. I think it would depend what the degree is in. If, like I said, go get your degree in educational leadership, but that's a hard one to get straight away because you just don't have the breadth of knowledge that you would if you were standing, in the classroom for a couple of years. But if you're really passionate and want to get your degree in ESE or, and you're specializing in something, I would see that as a positive. So I really don't see it necessarily as a negative. Maybe it was, back when we were and they handed you the keys to the door and that was it, maybe it was different, but I don't see any problem with that.
All right, cool.
All right, so I think the last couple, this is just an interesting one, real quick, and then I'll take any questions that y'all have. So endorsements, I got a really cool resume once, and he had put quotes from parents and district leaders in the side, and I just thought that was kind of a unique look. And actually, I'm going to flip over to my resume examples. I have one here, and this is a hokey example, but I just kind of want to show you how it was eye-catching. This is a teacher and they put a quote here, and I wouldn't use this, this quote necessarily, but, it might be something different to put something cool that you've gotten in an email from a parent or a direct quote, just to change it up. And then this is just kind of like if I was giving you the 5 to-dos, 3 to 5 categories per, I put page, it's meant to be section. Don't include your personal information. Format your heading wisely if you're trying to stick it down to 2 pages. Ideally, if you've got less than 10 years experience, your resume should fit on 1 page. And then, as we said, Dr. A, research the position you want and plan that position in your resume so it stands out.
Yeah, and that also play. I don't want us to get us off topic, but when we talk about interviewing, that's also another thing you need to do is research in the school too. So it works both ways for your resume and for your interview.
Absolutely. So I will take any questions. Anybody have any questions about anything I said, or anyone struggling to get, maybe getting a position and want to know? I do know somebody mentioned earlier about GPA and finance. Yeah, education, we don't care as much about GPA, but certainly if you're an engineer or in finance, they want to know that you're smart enough to do the work.
Awesome. So while people process that, let's see if we got any comments. I see some people here. All right, awesome. So is there something I could put on a resume to stand out as a career changer? Great question, Ross.
That is a really good question. I always look for a career changer. I look for when did you connect with children? So let's say you worked at a YMCA, how did you work with children in the YMCA? I get a lot of people from Disney and they highlight their guest relations. Oh, I worked with, guest relations. And I can tell you some questions that I might ask is, dealing with a difficult student. Well, I didn't deal with a difficult student, but I dealt with some difficult people. And you can kind of morph it that way. So anything that shows that you can be organized, that you can be compassionate, that you can build relationships. Those are all important things to put on a resume as a teacher. And then, maybe you have a family member that is in teaching, you can put when you went and helped them. If you're going to career change, it could be a good idea to go get some experience in a classroom, volunteer a little bit in the summer or here or there, or, work for a camp of some sort. But we're looking for, really, are you a good human? And do you love kids? You're going to put kids first. And then what are you going to bring? If you don't know the information as a career changer, you don't have the educational background, but what grit do you have that'll get you through it?
Yeah. And you made a good point about that Disney example. Regardless of where you're coming from, a lot of people say, well, I don't, they'll ask me a question about education and working with students, but I have no experience. Think outside the box. And you made a great point about that. Think about something else in your life that you've done an experience and bring it into the school environment, because you can relate anything in your life. You just got to be ready for it and think outside the box. So that's great. That's great.
And even if you truly draw a blank, talk about how you will research that information. I don't know the answer to that, but I would be, if you have someone who will help me, I will work really hard to learn it. Or I do know this part of that, but I don't know this piece. One of my famous questions is, what are you going to do when you want to quit? Because every first year teacher, regardless, career changer or otherwise, let's be honest, you're going to want to quit. And what are you going to do to keep yourself strong and work through that? So, anything that you've done to have that grit, it's hard to be a teacher right now. It really is. It's so rewarding, but it's hard.
Do you think that people putting together their resume now and they want to get a job, I know schools just started, but obviously schools are still hiring and they need teachers. Do you think there should be any thought process into what's going on in the world, meaning like COVID and special skills, like putting more stuff on technology, maybe if you have experience with that? That's definitely something should consider.
Yeah, it's really interesting. At my school, we're 50-50 digital, 50-50 face-to-face. And the divide, the age divide is really interesting. My young people, they look like they're in a spaceship and they've got all these devices and they can click, 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 click. And so their experience is invaluable. And whereas my more seasoned teachers, like myself, we are in the classroom and we have some innovative things that we're doing as well, like research how you can do cooperative structures that don't take face-to-face or that can be used, Kagan put out a whole section on how to do those structures with the masks on, and how are you going to adapt your classroom and your learning structures to still do those groupings and getting students together, but apart.
Awesome. So we got a couple more questions we could cipher through. And while you guys are watching, if you have any questions, whether you're watching live or the recording on a YouTube channel, throw them in the comment box and we'll make sure we address those for you. So my next question for you is, and I know a lot of people stress over this, or some people don't even think about it. Are there certain keywords that people should focus on when writing anything on their resume?
That is a great question that honestly I have not thought about. That's a really good question. I'm going to build that into my, thank you. I'm going to build that into my presentation. I would say big ones right now are definitely the technology piece, definitely grouping strategies and having students working together. A big one, differentiation is always a big one. How are you going to meet the different needs of different learners? Relationships is huge. At least for myself, I'm looking for teachers that can build relationships. Without relationships with students and parents, we really will get nowhere. So I would say those are some of the big keywords that I would use if you were doing that.
Sorry, Matt, I see you waving at the bottom of the screen. I have myself on mute for a second. So what's one piece of advice you would give educators as they embark on creating or updating their resume?
I would just say, look for a resume format out there that you like, copy it, and then show it to some people. Show it to your friends, show it to, you might even, if you have a friend that's an administrator, you might go to them and say, hey, would you give this a look? What do you think? Have a bunch of people look at it and find any errors, anything that they can find that might be trouble. I've actually written people and said, hey, you have this error in your resume, and they get really mad at me, but I'd much rather them get their next job, than keep them from it.
Also, so people who you don't have come in, you'll say, hey, by the way, you want to fix that typo? Ooh.
I do.
Well,
I did have just recently the one with the divorced and number of kids in the picture. The reason she did that is because overseas they require that you have all that information on the resume. So I just said to her, hey, I know that's all things that you need when you're updating overseas. However, you may want to consider taking them off and just let people see you for the educator that you are. And so she was thankful, but I've had some people, I'm sure they get angry, but I'd rather them fix it than they keep going on and they don't know why they don't get a job. It's like you come out of the bathroom with toilet paper on your shoe. Nobody wants to tell you, but you want somebody to tell you so you don't walk around with toilet paper. I did see the question on projecting confidence when I feel inexperienced. So don't forget that, yes, you're a first-year teacher, but you have some great skills and you've been through an internship. So yes, so be confident about the things you're good at, and then just be humble about the things that you don't know yet. So, I don't necessarily need an overconfident teacher, and we know you're going to be nervous. So don't be nervous about being nervous. We know you're going to be nervous, but just project your passion. You have to be passionate to be a teacher. You wouldn't have chosen education if you weren't passionate about educating students. So just pull that in on yourself and project that, because you can't be an imposter when you're, loving educating kids.
And honestly, so it made me think about when she said a first-year teacher, people coming out of the College of Education. Is internship something that you could put as experience in the classroom?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I would put that.
A lot of people aren't 100% sure. Like, well, I wasn't getting paid, so does it really count? I mean, it's something that I could highlight on there.
Absolutely. And when you're in your internships, look for ways to take what the teacher's doing and make it better. I don't mean better like the teacher's not doing something right, but look for a way to own it so that you can say, hey, when I was in this internship, I created a special program for my group of students to be able to track their own learning, or something unique that you did in that internship. Put that. Internship is so helpful. And especially where you intern and what grade levels. If I have a teacher that interned in kindergarten, when I'm talking to you, I might not think, you're ready for a 5th grade position, but you can highlight, you can say, what experience you got in kindergarten that led you to be ready for 5th grade. But I know you could nail kindergarten because you've been in that class. That makes sense.
Yes, Matt, you could hit me afterwards.
All right, I think I lost you.
I think you guys can't see, but our video producer's on the bottom of the screen because I forgot to unmute myself again.
Any other questions? You can type them in. These are great questions. Thank you, everybody.
We had a few people popping in later on. So those of you guys who are coming in a little late, make sure you watch the recording on the YouTube channel because
I think I lost you. Hopefully, Dr. A, are you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Christie went through a lot of examples before. So we had some people popping in that weren't here from before. So make sure you check the recording on the YouTube channel because she went through some do's and don'ts and examples. So our last question here, and we could answer any Q&A if people have some questions about resumes, want to jump in the video as well. So the last question I always ask everybody now on this show is, as we enter, and this is forget resumes, Christie, this doesn't have to do with resumes. As we enter a new school year of uncertainty and unknowns, we just, depending on the school district, you either started 2 weeks ago, some of you guys started this week, today. What's one big piece of advice that you can give educators moving forward?
Just give yourself grace. It's going to be messy and it's going to be yucky. It's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be sad. And all of us are in the same place. So I know you want to be perfect and you want to do it great and you want to have the best online lesson or the best face-to-face, and it's just not going to go the way you want because of the constraints we're under. So give yourself grace. I know it's easy to say and hard to do, but just know we are all in the same place and we are all struggling and all just doing the best that we can. So at the end of the day, if you can lay your head down and say you've done the best job that you can do, and tomorrow you're going to do the best job that you can do, that's all we can do right now.
Would that be your advice to school leaders as well?
Yes.
Same.
And perhaps take up a drinking habit. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Gatorade, right?
Yes, lots and lots of Gatorade. But yes, especially school leaders, because we don't, you kind of complain up and nobody takes care of. I always think about it like the car under the wire with all the birds, and the birds are like pooping all over the car and nobody cleans the car. Like somebody has to clean the car. And we're kind of the car sometimes where people don't, and those of you who are teachers, like have a little, like go in and you can't hug them, but your principals are under so much right now and having to make very hard decisions for you. And sometimes they come off as not what you'd want, but there's so much that goes into it. So just know that we're people too, and we cry too. I mean, we do, whether they want to admit it or not. We have the same emotions and the same fears and everything that you do. And we're trying to give ourselves grace. Go ahead.
I was going to say, is that where you alleviate your frustration? I see you mountain biking online. Are you doing the jump and stuff too? You do the jump? No?
Fanny, it is nice to lose myself.
Fanny's got a question. Does working as a substitute count to put on your resume?
Honestly, being a substitute is the hardest job next to being a custodian and a bus driver. So I would absolutely put that information, especially if you can land a long-term sub position. That tells me that you were good enough that a principal wanted to keep you for a period of time. But yes, subbing is so hard because our little angels don't always act like an angel when their teacher isn't in the room. So, and you have to be flexible and you have to put up with, you're reading sub plans that look like they were written in a different language. And so, yes, I would absolutely put substitute teaching. And if you're an intern that can do some substitute teaching on the side or work in this school in any way, that is awesome use of time.
Awesome. So I think we tackled all the questions here. Give you guys another second. If anyone has any questions or wants to pop in the room, let us know here. I know we're winding down in an upper episode of the Deets with Dr. Ray. So Christie, I want to thank you so much. I'm going to hang out for a minute while we wrap this up. Just want to talk to you real quick. So thank you, Christie. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time. Unfortunately, we're wrapping up another episode, Deets with Dr. Ray. I know we had a lot of people popping in and out. So you're going to be able to, if you're watching the recording of this session and you think you have a lot of teacher friends or colleagues or college students who would appreciate knowing what to do, what not to do with a resume, grab that URL on the top of the screen, or you watch it on YouTube, grab that URL, share it on your social media, tag your fellow college students or teachers who are always looking for ways to improve their resume. So whether you're teaching now or not, there's always improvement to be made. So I know for resumes, you could be teaching 3, 4, 5, 7 years. You might want to switch schools, might want to do something different. There's always room to improve it and keep it there for you, especially if you're a college student rolling out, trying to get your first job. Schools are hiring. I work with a lot of school districts across the state. They say, Jason, you know anybody that wants a job? They're out there. Just because people are teaching online in mixed mode, teachers are still looking for, HR directors and certification specialists, principals are still looking for teachers. Don't give up. Let me know if you have any questions. So real quick, next week, Matt, you want to pop that up on the screen? So as we mentioned before at the beginning, next week, we've got the HR department for Collier Public Schools, one of our partners here at the Learning Liaisons. They're going to come on and talk about how to support new teachers out of the gate. So these are great people to ask questions about how to get support at your school district. And if you don't get it, what you need to do to make your situation better. And maybe you want to go to Collier County. If you don't know what that is, that's in Southwest Florida. Beautiful area right by the beach there. So if you want to consider to move, you definitely want to be there next session. And if you don't want to teach down there, it's going to be another great session, a great, tremendous value to help you on your journey at your school district. So with that being said, Dr. Ray here. Hope you had a great Monday, an even better week, and a rock star weekend. And thank you for joining again on another episode with me and spending time with me on a Monday night after a long day. And big shout out to those teachers across the United States that started today. I know a lot of school districts around the states started today. Those Florida districts who started last week and the week before. Big ups to you guys. Keep fighting the good fight. You guys doing an amazing job. And if you have any questions, let us know. Throw it in the comments. We're here to help you. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you not next. I almost said next again. Next week's a holiday. In 2 weeks for another episode of the Deets with Dr. Ray. We'll see you then.